အားလုံးပဲမင်္ဂလာပါခင်ဗျာကျွန်တော်ဒီနေ့တင်ဆက်ပေးချင်တာကတော့ယူကရိန်းနဲ့ရုရှားနဲ့ဖြစ်တဲ့စစ်ပွဲတွေကိုကျွန်တော်ရွေးရှင်ပြလုပ်ပေးခြင်းဖြစ်ပါတယ်ခင်ဗျာအားလုံးပဲအစဉ်သင့်ဖြစ်ပြီဆိုရင်ကျွန်တော်နဲ့ဒီဗီဒီယိုလေးကိုအဆုံးထိအတူလိုက်ကြည့်ကြပါလို့ကျွန်တော်အားလုံးကိုမြစ်တာရက်ခံပါတယ်ခင်ဗျာအားလုံးပဲအစဉ်သင့်ဖြစ်ပြီဆိုရင်ကျွန်တော်နဲ့ဒီဗီဒီယိုလေးကိုကြည့်လိုက်ကြရအောင်ခင်ဗျာ
The enemy's equipment. This is another attempt by the Russian military to break through the Ukrainian front. The invaders' brigade consisted of 6 pieces of military equipment. The first tank in the convoy was a Russian tank that opened fire on Ukrainian positions. It was also the first to be hit by a Ukrainian javelin. But this time, the hit was weak and the tank continued to move. The Ukrainian military then loaded another charge and fired a control shot. The tank was neutralized. Then, a Ukrainian tank arrived on the battlefield and destroyed a Russian armored personnel carrier with infantry with a well-aimed shot. The Russian military began to flee, but most of them were neutralized. Frightened Russian soldiers began to flee the battlefield. These 2 Russian tanks wanted to conduct reconnaissance in the Ukrainian-controlled territories. A Ukrainian crew on a German Leopard 2A4 tank drove out to meet them. It destroyed 1 Russian tank with a single shot and then began hunting for another. The Ukrainian And this is another Russian convoy of 8 military vehicles trying to storm Ukrainian positions. 1 shot at a time, the defenders began to destroy the enemy's intentions. Ukrainian artillerymen fiercely began to strike, destroying all enemies along with their equipment. A column of Russian armored vehicles moves toward the Ukrainian infantry. Ukrainian defenders meet it with artillery fire and attack with kamikaze drones. The first line of attack was successfully repelled. Later, another convoy of Russian tanks was spotted, which was immediately fired upon. The Russian military, not expecting such resistance, was forced to retreat, but Ukrainian drone operators did not stop attacking incessantly. Frightened, the Russians began to abandon their damaged equipment and ran to the forests. And another total destruction of a Russian column of armored vehicles. The Russians, facing fierce resistance from the Ukrainian military, are fleeing the battlefield faster than tanks to save their lives. An unsuccessful offensive for the Russians turned into a total defeat. Russian attack aircraft tried to break through to Ukrainian positions using an armored personnel carrier. Their movement was spotted by Ukrainian intelligence. At the same time, the Ukrainian military waited for the best moment. And fired a precise shot from a javelin. completely destroying the combat vehicle. And then we eliminated the entire enemy landing force. Here, Russians are fleeing the battlefield in a Russian-made car called a bukhanka. They were carrying wounded soldiers in it, but the car could not accelerate quickly because of... But this did not help them. Here, the Russians tried to capture Ukrainian positions with tanks and armored vehicles with infantry. The Ukrainians began to resist them, destroying the tanks with kamikaze drones and dropping shells directly on the occupiers' heads. Here, Ukrainian defenders spotted an enemy ammunition truck pulling a howitzer. The Ukrainian military launched a kamikaze drone and hit the artillery unit directly, causing it to instantly burst into flames. The crew of 3 soldiers driving the truck scattered in different directions. The artillery system and the truck with ammunition were completely burnt down. This is a new Russian T-90M tank that fired at Ukrainian military positions on Ukrainian-controlled territory. The Ukrainian military did not forgive it and destroyed it. Another attempt by the Russian invaders to maneuver an assault on Ukrainian positions ended in total failure. All Russian equipment was brutally destroyed. These are the battles near Kurakov. The Russian military, who occupied and destroyed the previous Ukrainian villages, were severely punished. They were constantly subject. Here, the Ukrainian military discovered an enemy SA-17 Grizzly. With one precise shot from the HIMARS, they immediately destroyed. And another destruction. In the Vuhledar area, Russian troops are trying to lay siege to the Ukrainian military, but the defenders are ahead of them and destroy their equipment, preventing them from getting closer to their positions. This kamikaze drone detected a Russian cannon and delivered a precision strike, destroying it. Here, 3 enemy armored personnel carriers tried to storm the Ukrainian infantry in a forest landing. When the Russians got closer, they opened fire from the armored personnel carriers. The Ukrainian military also began to return fire and eventually managed to hit 1 Russian armored vehicle. The invaders tried to take the forest landing with infantry, but after receiving a fierce rebuff, they turned around and began to flee in 2 armored personnel carriers. Ukrainian intelligence discovered a $25 million Tor anti-aircraft missile system in the field. After passing the coordinates to the militants, a precision damaged the anti-aircraft system, and then it completely burned down. And this is the Ukrainian military in the Kursk region under smoke cover clearing landings with the Russians using an Abrams tank and a Bradley armored anti-tank vehicle. After successful clearing of the site, tanks returned to Ukrainian positions. In the Kharkiv sector, Ukrainian intelligence recorded the redeployment of Russian troops. Taking advantage of this moment, the Ukrainian military began destroying military equipment along with the occupiers. After a targeted strike on the Russians, the occupiers had to hide in a forest belt, but Ukrainian drone operators were able to find them there as well. A Russian tank spotted by a Ukrainian reconnaissance drone hit a mine and completely detonated. This is a Russian truck with ammunition, which will detonate in a few seconds after a Ukrainian drone strike and make a big fireworks display. And this is Toretsk, Donetsk region. This building was mined by the Ukrainian military. The Russian occupiers, not knowing that there were explosives inside the building, occupied it. After that, the Ukrainian military remotely blew it up together with the occupiers. After the failed offensive, the Russian military tried to flee the battlefield in 2 tanks, but they were out of luck. The Ukrainian military used drones to shoot down 1 tank and then destroyed the next one. Here, Ukrainian drone operators noticed the redeployment of Russian troops. Seizing the moment, they destroyed 2 armored personnel carriers with the occupiers. And another Russian armored personnel carrier that was destroyed by a Ukrainian drone. Another Russian armored personnel carrier hit a Ukrainian mine and exploded. Only scrap metal remained of the armored vehicle. The Ukrainian town of Selidov, Russian military opened fire on a car with 2 civilians. The fire came from the direction of the bridge, where the Russian occupiers had set up an ambush. The passenger of the car was injured and could not move. 2 Ukrainian soldiers came out of the fortification to evacuate the civilians. One of them provided first aid. Medical assistance. A Russian convoy of 4 military vehicles, consisting of 2 tanks and 2 armored personnel carriers, was destroyed in the Pokrovsky direction. The occupiers tried to redeploy troops to attack the positions of Ukrainian defenders by surprise, but they were completely destroyed by kamikaze drones. A reconnaissance drone spotted an enemy tank on the horizon. Ukrainian aerial reconnaissance transmitted the coordinates to the artillery, after which an accurate deadly charge was fired. This is the crew of the invaders who entered the territory controlled by the Ukrainian military and were attacked with an FGM-148 Javelin directly into the tank. One of the crew members started to burn, and the other 2 invaders left the tank and fled. Ukrainian troops turned Russian tank into scrap metal with another shot. And here is an example of the fact that in the Russian army, everyone is for themselves. These 2 Russian occupiers tried to escape from the battlefield on a motorcycle. One of them was wounded. In order not to burden the motorcycle, the other occupier decided to leave it on the battlefield. Thank you, friends. That's all for today. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with the latest developments. This video was prepared by Hustler. See you soon.
ဟုတ်ကဲ့ခင်ဗျာဒီဗီဒီယိုလေးကိုစောင့်အောင်ကြည့်ပေးတော့တယောက်ချင်းတွေကိုအများကြီးကျေးဇူးတင်ပါတယ်ခင်ဗျာကျွန်တော် YouTube channel လေးကိုလည်း like and follow လုပ်ထားပေးပါလို့အားလုံးတောင်းဆိုချင်ပါတယ်ခင်ဗျာဒီမှာပြည်သူပြည်သားအပေါင်းစစ်ပေးရေးပေးမိမိကကင်းဝေးပါစေလို့ကျွန်တော်ညီအဆုမူကောင်းတောင်းရင်ဒီဗီဒီယိုလေးကိုအဆုံးသတ်လိုက်ပါတယ်ခင်ဗျာ